The text was sent. There was no taking it back now. Malika stared at her phone, wedding dress rustling around her feet, heart hammering so hard she thought her ribs might crack. "If you still want me, come get me." 7 words sent to John Sion, the man she'd left behind in Seoul, the man her family had threatened her over, the man who'd let her walk away without explanation 6 weeks ago. Downstairs, 300 wedding guests were arriving. Her mother was singing praise songs in the kitchen. Kofi, her almost husband, was probably adjusting his tie and practicing his vows. And she'd just texted another man to come rescue her. Her phone buzzed. She almost dropped it. His reply was loading. This was it. Either he'd come and she'd run, and her family would never forgive her, or he wouldn't. And she'd have to delete the message and marry someone else, while knowing she'd been brave enough to ask, but not wanted enough to be chosen. The dots appeared. He was typing. The wedding dress felt like a cage. Malika sat on the edge of her childhood bed, white silk pooling around her feet, phone trembling in her hands. Downstairs, 300 guests were arriving, the same guests who'd watched her grow up, who'd nodded approvingly when her parents announced the engagement, who'd told her how lucky she was to marry Kofi Mensah Oduya. Lucky. Her fingers hovered over the screen. 10 digits typed out. A message that would destroy everything her family had built in the past 6 weeks. A message that would confirm every whispered worry, every concerned phone call, every prayer her mother had sent up. "If you still want me, come get me." 40 seconds of staring at those 7 words. 40 seconds of her entire future hanging in the balance. She pressed send. The phone hit the bed face down. She couldn't look, couldn't breathe, couldn't think about what she'd just done. 18 months earlier, none of this had seemed possible. The coffee had been scalding hot. Malika felt it soak through her cream blouse before she registered what happened. The cup, her cup, the one she'd been carrying while texting and walking, was now empty, and its entire contents were spreading across her chest and the chest of the man she'd just walked directly into. "Oh my God, I'm so sorry. I wasn't looking. She grabbed napkins from her bag, dabbing uselessly at his shirt. He stood completely still. That was the first strange thing. Most people jerked back, or yelped, or at least flinched. He just stood there, looking down at the growing stain with what could only be described as mild interest. "Please, I'll pay for dry cleaning. I'm so sorry." Malika kept babbling, kept dabbing, aware she was probably making it worse. "You're Kenyan." She stopped. Looked up. That was the second strange thing. Most people led with anger or annoyance. He'd led with observation. Yes. How did you? Your accent. The way you apologize. Nairobi." "Yes, but how?" "I pay attention," he said simply. Then, with the smallest hint of a smile, "The coffee wasn't that hot. You can stop trying to remove my skin." She yanked her hands back, suddenly aware she'd been scrubbing at a stranger's chest for 30 seconds. "I really am sorry." "Don't be. I needed to change this shirt anyway." "That's kind of you to say." "I don't say kind things. I say true things. I hate this shirt. My secretary bought it. Too much starch." Malika blinked, then, despite herself, laughed. "So I did you a favor?" "Arguably." "Then you're welcome." "You're welcome for letting you do me a favor, yes." The conversation was absurd. She was standing in the middle of a Seoul sidewalk, coffee dripping from her fingers, talking to a man whose face was so carefully blank it almost seemed intentional. And somehow, they were both almost smiling. "I'm Malika." "Sion." "Nice to meet you, Sion. Sorry about your shirt you hated anyway." "Nice to meet you, Malika. Sorry about your coffee." He bowed slightly, Korean style, and walked away. She watched him go, noticed he didn't rush despite the wet shirt, noticed people seemed to step aside for him without him asking. Strange man, she thought. She didn't think about him again until 3 days later, when he walked into the cafe where she worked. Not the cafe. Her cafe. The tiny Itaewon place where she spent Tuesday and Thursday mornings doing freelance consulting work, where the owner knew her order, where she had a favorite corner table. He walked in, looked around once, and walked directly to her table. "You're in my spot," he said. Malaika looked up from her laptop. "I'm sorry?" "This table. It's the only one with an outlet that doesn't flicker and a chair that doesn't wobble. You're in my spot. I've sat here every Tuesday for 8 months. I've sat here every Tuesday for 3 years." They stared at each other. "How is that possible?" she asked. "What time do you usually arrive?" 9:30. "I arrive at 9. So you've never seen me?" "Correct. And I've never seen you." "Also correct." Another pause. "We could share," he offered. "The table?" "It seats 4. We're 2. Math suggests this is possible." That almost smile again. Malaika realized he was funny in the driest way possible. "Okay, you can have your spot back." "I said share, not surrender." She closed her laptop. "Sion, right? From the coffee incident?" "Malaika, from the coffee assault." "I said sorry. I said I hated the shirt. So we're even." "Arguably." He sat down across from her, pulled out a tablet, and started working. Just like that. No more conversation. No explanation for how he'd found her or why he'd come to this specific cafe after their random sidewalk collision. 10 minutes of silence. Then, without looking up, "What kind of consulting?" "Digital marketing, small businesses mostly. You?" "Hotels." "You consult for hotels?" "I own them." She glanced at him. His clothes were nice, but not flashy. Watch was simple. No visible logos or signals of wealth. "How many hotels?" "Enough." "That's not a number." "No, it's not." Frustrating man, she thought. But she smiled anyway. That was the first Tuesday. Then there was the second. He was there at 9. She arrived at 9:30. He nodded when she sat down. They worked in silence for 2 hours. When she packed up to leave, he said, "Same time next week?" "I'm usually here anyway." "Good." 4th Tuesday, he brought her coffee. The exact order she always got. She hadn't told him what it was. "You asked the owner," she accused. "I pay attention, I told you." "That's borderline creepy." "Would you prefer I hadn't?" She took the coffee. Perfect temperature. "No, thank you." "You're welcome." 6th Tuesday, she brought him something. A small package wrapped in brown paper. He looked at it suspiciously. "What is this?" "Open it." Inside was a shirt. Simple, white, cotton. No starch. "For the one I murdered," she explained. He held it up, checked the size. Perfect fit. "You guessed?" "I pay attention too." That was the first time she saw him actually smile. Not the half smile, the almost smile. A real one. It changed his entire face. "Dinner," he said. "What?" "Have dinner with me. Tonight." "Is this because of the shirt?" "No. This is because I've been trying to figure out how to ask for 6 weeks, and the shirt gave me an excuse." Honest. Painfully. Strangely honest. "Okay. Okay?" "Yes. Dinner. Tonight." He nodded once, like something had been settled. "I'll pick you up at 7. Text me your address." "You haven't given me your number." He rattled off 10 digits. She scrambled to enter them into her phone. "Wait, how did you know I'd say yes?" she called as he stood to leave. "I didn't." "But I was hoping you'd appreciate clear intentions. You're very weird. You know that?" "Yes." "Is that a problem?" "Not yet." "Good." "Hey," quick pause. "If you're already hooked by Malaika and this mysterious hotel owner who tracks her coffee order, you're going to want to stick around for what happens next. Things are about to get complicated in the best way. Hit that subscribe button so you don't miss a single moment of this romance, because trust me, it gets intense." Dinner turned into breakfast. Not in the way that sounds. Dinner was at a quiet Korean restaurant in Hanam-dong, where the owner greeted Sion by name and didn't give them menus. Food just appeared. Course after course of things Malaika had never tried, each one better than the last. "Do you always order without asking?" she'd teased. I called ahead, told them to prepare whatever was best today. "Do you trust me?" "I don't know you well enough to answer that." "Fair. Do you trust the food so far?" "Yes." "Then trust me for 3 more courses, and we'll revisit the question." They talked for 4 hours. She told him about Nairobi, about her family, about how she'd come to Seoul for a 1-year contract and kept extending it because the city felt like a place where she could breathe. He told her about growing up in Seoul, about taking over his family's business young, about how he liked the city at night when most people were sleeping. "Why hotels?" she'd asked. "They're temporary homes. People come, people leave. No one stays long enough to complicate things." "Sounds lonely." "It is, but it's clear." "And you like clear things." "I do. Most of the time." "What about the rest of the time?" He'd looked at her then, really looked. "The rest of the time I meet women who throw coffee on me and steal my favorite table." She'd laughed. He'd smiled. The check never came because apparently he owned part of this restaurant too. Breakfast happened 2 weeks later. She'd mentioned loving this tiny place in Itaewon that did Kenyan-style chai and mandatsi. The next morning, Thursday, not even their usual Tuesday, he'd texted, "I'm outside your building. Bring your appetite. How do you know where I live? You texted me your address. For dinner pickup, remember? That was 2 weeks ago. I have good memory. Again, borderline creepy. Again, would you prefer I hadn't?" She'd come downstairs in sweatpants and a hoodie, no makeup, hair tied up. Most men would have looked disappointed. He just handed her a coffee and opened the car door. The driver took them to the chai place. They sat outside, drinking from paper cups, watching the neighborhood wake up. "This is nice," he'd said. "The chai?" "This. No plan. No schedule. Just sitting." "Do you not do this often?" "Never." "Why not?" "My life doesn't usually allow for spontaneous breakfast." "What changed?" "You did." Simple as that. You did. Like she'd rearranged his entire world by existing in it. 3 months in, he brought her white orchids. "What are these for?" she'd asked, taking the single stem. "You mentioned you liked them." "Last week, when we walked past that flower shop. I said 1 sentence. You said they reminded you of your grandmother's garden, that she grew them in recycled paint cans, that the white ones were your favorite because they bloomed even when everything else was dry." Malaika had stared at him. "You remember that?" "I remember everything you tell me." "Why?" "Because when you talk about home, your voice changes, gets softer. I like it." That was the moment. The exact moment she knew she was falling. 6 months in, her friends met him. The expat crew, her chosen family in Seoul. Marie from France, Jin from Australia, Amara from Nigeria. They'd been protective, skeptical, demanding to meet this mysterious man who'd consumed all of Malaika's free time. Dinner at a pojang matcha, the plastic tents with grilled meat and soju. Casual, loud, chaotic. The opposite of Sion's usual environment. He'd shown up anyway. Sat on a plastic stool, ate grilled pork belly, answered their interrogation with patient honesty. "So what do you do?" Amara had asked, direct as always. "I run my family's business, hotels primarily, some real estate, other investments." Sounds fancy. "It's work." "Do you treat her well?" Marie, protective. "I try to." She should answer that, not me. All eyes turned to Malaika. "He brings me flowers for no reason and remembers everything I say." "You tell me." Jin had grinned. "Keep her."